New Year's Eve used to be my least favorite holiday. Too much pressure to have the perfect night, too many New Year, New Me posts, and way too much awkward small talk at parties, filled with people I didn't care about. So that year, I skipped all of it. No party, no fancy clothes, not even a Zoom hangout with friends. I was in bed by 10:30, half watching some sci-fi movie, fully prepared to sleep through midnight. Then my phone buzzed. It was 11:57 p.m., unknown number. Happy New Year. Handsome. Miss you already. I blinked at it, confused. I hadn't kissed anyone lately, hadn't even flirted with anyone in weeks. It had to be a wrong number, but something about the message made me pause. The emoji combo, the confidence, the casual intimacy. So I replied, "Me, I think you've got the wrong guy, but I'm flattered." A pause. Then, unknown number. Wait, is this not Tyler? Me. Definitely not. But I hope Tyler appreciates being called handsome. He sounds lucky. Unknown number. Shit. Sorry, I'm a little tipsy and my contacts are blurry. Lalo. But hey, Happy New Year anyway, mystery man. Me, Happy New Year to you too. Could be worse than ringing in 2025 with a wrong number text. Unknown number. True. Want to pretend we know each other for the next 10 minutes and save each other from feeling lonely? I stared at my screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. And then I typed, me. Sure, I'm Liam, currently in bed, in sweats, watching aliens invade Earth. Unknown number, I'm Nate. At a rooftop party I regret coming to. My drink tastes like sadness and cheap champagne. Me. Sounds about right for New Year's. That was how it began. What should have been a 2-minute exchange somehow stretched past midnight. We texted until nearly 1 a.m., jumping from sarcastic jokes to what we'd hoped 2024 would be, to how weird it was to be talking to someone we didn't know, but kinda didn't want to stop texting. Somewhere around 12:42 a.m., he said, "Nate, this is gonna sound insane, but I wish I was watching aliens in sweats with you right now." And I wasn't sure how to answer that, because I kinda wish the same thing. By 1:10, the conversation had slowed. He said he was getting an Uber home. I said I'd probably pass out soon. And then just before we stopped, he added, "Nate, save my number, just in case you ever need a stranger to vent to again." I did. I didn't expect him to text me the next morning. Honestly, I figured the whole thing would fade into the weird little pile of late-night moments you laugh about once and forget. Wrong number guy, champagne haze, funny coincidence. End of story. But at 10:14 a.m. as I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed. Nate, morning, alien boy. Did Earth survive the invasion? I spit toothpaste into the sink so fast I almost choked. My reflection in the mirror showed a guy smiling like an idiot at his phone. Me. Barely. The mothership left around 3 a.m. How's the hangover? Nate. Brutal. I regret everything except texting you. I had to sit down for that one. It was bold, playful, but not creepy, and it made my chest warm in a way I couldn't explain. I told him I was making coffee, and he sent a picture of his own cup. Shaky hand, messy sheets, hair sticking up like he fought someone in his sleep. He really didn't look like the flirty, polished guy the first had imagined last night. He looked real, soft around the edges, kinda sleepy and adorable. We ended up texting the whole morning. Not non-stop, but enough that every buzz gave me this stupid jolt in my stomach. By noon, he asked, "Nate, do you ever go to that cafe on 5th? The one with the crooked chalkboard outside?" Me, Brood Awakenings. Yeah, I go there like way too much. Nate, good. I'm walking there now. My heart flipped. Was he implying? Then another buzz. Nate, if you wanted to accidentally walk there too, I wouldn't be mad. I stared at that message on my screen. Frozen. This was ridiculous. We didn't know each other. We hadn't even seen each other, except during a glitchy 20-second moment on FaceTime, before his friend bumped into him and the call dropped. For all he knew, I could have been a serial killer, For all I knew, he could have been. But something in me, something quiet but sure, said go. So I did. I threw on a hoodie, ran my fingers through my hair until it looked less like I'd just woken up, and headed out the door. It was cold, that sharp, winter kind of cold that makes your ears burn, and the streets still had leftover glitter from the night before. As I walked, I kept imagining him waiting there, checking his phone, wondering if he'd been too forward. When I reached the cafe, I saw him immediately, standing outside, hands in pockets, rocking back on his heels like he was trying to look casual but failing miserably. The beanie from last night, the slightly crooked smile, the exact same energy his texts had. He saw me before I could decide whether to wave or pretend to check the menu board. His face lit up, and then, God. He walked toward me with this hesitant, almost relieved look, like we'd been circling around each other longer than a single night. You came, he said, breath visible in the cold. You texted, I said, fighting a smile. We both laughed, awkward at first, then easy, natural. And when we stepped inside, sitting across from each other with hot drinks in our hands, it didn't feel like meeting a stranger. It felt right. He talked with his hands. I talked too fast. We kept interrupting each other because we kept wanting to say the same thing. There were these pauses, the good kind, where we'd catch each other's eyes and both break into stupid smiles. At one point, he looked down at his coffee, then up at me again. You know, he said lightly, if I hadn't texted the wrong Tyler, we wouldn't be here. Lucky mistake, I said. Really lucky, he replied, his smile softening. By the time we left, the sun was already setting. Outside, he hesitated. And then, almost shyly, can I see you again? Like, soon? I didn't even pretend to think about it. Yeah, I said. Definitely, he grinned, that warm, uneven grin. And for a second, I felt like the whole city got a little quieter around us. I walked home with frozen fingers, a beating heart, and the overwhelming sense that something had shifted. Something small. Something big. Something I definitely wasn't expecting when I went to bed early the night before. The next few days were strange, in the best way. I kept expecting the magic to fade. You know, the kind of thing that starts late at night with a few texts and then evaporates once normal life sets back in. But every buzz from my phone made me grin like an idiot. And it wasn't just friendly conversation. There was an edge now, a teasing, flirty tension that neither of us tried to hide. Nate texted first the next morning. Nate, morning, Liam. Coffee? Or am I going to have to stalk you again? Me, I'm not sure you can legally stalk someone just for caffeine. Nate, I'll take my chances. We ended up meeting at that same cafe again. It was awkward at first because we both remembered how ridiculous it was to walk into a place full of strangers for someone we'd never actually met before New Year's. But the moment he smiled at me, all that awkwardness melted. I swear, there was something about the way his eyes lit up that made me forget to breathe sometimes. Over coffee, we talked about everything. Work, movies, childhood memories, even embarrassing stories about our families. And yet, the conversation somehow felt intimate, like we were catching up on years we hadn't lived together, even though we'd literally met the night before. After coffee, he suggested a walk along the river, and I agreed. We wandered past the frozen edges of the water, watching the reflections of city lights shimmer on the ice. There was this quiet between us that wasn't uncomfortable. It was warm, charged, filled with possibility. At some point, Nate stopped, turning to face me. Do you ever feel like life just throws things at you randomly, and sometimes it's perfect? He asked. His voice was soft, almost hesitant, but there was this nervous energy underneath it. I looked at him, trying to read him. He was serious. That made my stomach twist. Yeah, I said finally. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly what you needed. His smile was small, but it hit me right in the chest. Then, almost impulsively, he reached out, brushing a strand of hair off my forehead. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just texting anymore. It wasn't just a coincidence. This was real. We kept walking, side by side, shoulders brushing more often than not. The air was cold, but it didn't matter. My hand itched to reach for his. Nate seemed to feel the same tension, because his fingers kept twitching near mine as if daring to take the leap. By the time we returned to the cafe area, the streets were nearly empty. Nate turned to me, that teasing grin back in place. "So," he said, tilting his head, "are we officially wrong number soulmates now?" I laughed, but my heart was racing. "I think we might be." And that was when he leaned closer. Just a fraction. Just enough that I could feel his warmth against me. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. But it was the beginning of one. The wrong number had turned into the right person. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like New Year's was just another day. I felt like everything had started over. And for once, I was excited about it. The next week was surreal. Nate and I texted constantly. Sometimes it was jokes, sometimes serious conversations about life, sometimes just the kind of mundane "what are you eating for lunch" messages that somehow felt incredibly intimate. I kept expecting one of us to slip up, to lose interest, or for the whole thing to fizzle, but it didn't. If anything, it grew stronger. We decided to meet again a few days later, this time at a quiet little park near the river. There were still traces of frost on the ground, and the sun hung low, casting a golden glow over the city. I arrived early, pacing slightly because my mind wouldn't stop racing. When Nate arrived, he was bundled up in a dark jacket and a scarf, hands shoved in his pockets, but the moment he saw me, he dropped that slightly guarded posture. His smile, it never got old. "Hey," he said, voice low, almost shy. "Hey," I replied, my voice cracking slightly, even though I tried to keep it casual. We walked together along the winding paths, sometimes talking, sometimes silent. And in those silences, the tension was electric. There was the occasional brush of our arms, the kind that made my stomach flip. At one point, we stopped near a frozen fountain. He looked at me, and I could tell he was debating something. "Liam," he started, then paused. "Can I be honest?" "Always," I said, almost too quickly. "I wasn't supposed to text you that night. I'd meant to send it to Tyler, but..." His voice trailed and he finally met my eyes. "I'm really glad I did. You're different. In a good way. I like that about you." My chest tightened. I wanted to tell him the exact same thing, that in one wrong number text, everything in my life had shifted. That in a few days, I couldn't imagine not knowing him. That I didn't say it. I smiled, let him see it, and stepped a little closer. He mirrored me. Then, without overthinking it, without a moment of hesitation, he reached for my hand, and I let him. It was the kind of touch that started small, just fingers brushing, a hesitant intertwining, and instantly felt like it had been meant to happen all along. My heart was racing, but I wasn't afraid. Not with him. We stayed there for a long time, talking, holding hands, occasionally laughing at something ridiculous, occasionally just standing there in comfortable silence. By the time we finally said goodbye, the sky was a deep indigo, streetlights flickering on. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath. "See you tomorrow?" he whispered. "I'll be here," I said. And just like that, the wrong number had become the first real connection I'd had in years. The spark from that random New Year's Eve text hadn't just survived. It had ignited something I wasn't ready to name yet. Over the next few days, Nate and I fell into an easy rhythm. It was still early, still tentative, but every interaction, text, call, or meetup felt like the beginning of something I didn't want to end. We had lunch together one afternoon at a small diner tucked away on a side street. He arrived just a little late, hair messy, scarf half undone, looking like he hadn't cared at all about being perfect, and I loved it. We shared a booth, both of us joking and teasing, but underneath, there was this unspoken tension. Every time our knees brushed under the table, I felt my stomach twist. After lunch, he suggested we take a walk along the river again. The winter air was crisp, the kind that made your cheeks burn and your fingers ache if you weren't holding a warm drink or hand. "Liam," he said softly as we paused on a bridge overlooking the water. "I don't normally do this, fast, intense, but I like you, and I want to see where this goes." My chest tightened so fast it hurt. I had been thinking the same thing, but hearing him say it made it real. "I like you too," I admitted. "I've been thinking about you non-stop since that first night." He smiled, that crooked, heart-stopping smile that had me melting every single time. And then, impulsively, I leaned in. He met me halfway, and for a brief moment, the cold air, the city noise, everything fell away. The kiss was soft, tentative at first, testing boundaries, but it was electric. It had sparks. It had warmth. And it had him. When we pulled apart, neither of us moved away. We just stood there, foreheads touching, breathing in sync. I realized in that moment that the wrong number text hadn't just started a conversation. It had started something much bigger, something that could change everything. We walked back slowly, hands intertwined this time, our laughter echoing softly along empty streets. And in the back of my mind, a thought lingered. This was just the beginning. For the next few weeks, Nate and I were practically inseparable. Not in the clingy, obsessive way that makes people roll their eyes. More like two people discovering a rhythm they didn't know they needed. Texts in the morning, quick calls during lunch breaks and evening walks that somehow always ended with us sitting somewhere quiet, sharing a coffee or hot chocolate. Hands occasionally brushing, sometimes holding. Every little touch made my chest tighten. Every smile from him left me dizzy. But then, the first crack appeared. It was a Thursday evening. Nate had promised to meet me after work for a casual dinner, nothing fancy. I arrived at the little Italian place first, snagging a corner booth, scrolling idly through my phone. 30 minutes passed, 40. Just as I was about to text him, he walked in. But he wasn't alone. My stomach dropped. A woman was with him, laughing, leaning close to him, hand on his arm. He hadn't seen me yet. I froze, my heart hammering. Was this just a friend, his sister, someone he worked with? He finally saw me and froze too. That same crooked smile vanished, replaced with something else. Guilt? Panic? "Liam?" he started, eyes wide. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind was spinning, imagining the worst-case scenarios. This is Sarah. She's, my coworker," he said, turning to the woman who was now smiling awkwardly. "Sarah, this is Liam. The guy the first told you about who, well..." I shook my head, words failing me. Once they left, Nate turned to me, his face pale. "I can explain." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to yell. I wanted to grab him and never let go, all at the same time. Instead, I stayed quiet, letting the tension hang thick between us. And that was when I realized what started with a random New Year's text had turned into something real, something worth feeling jealous over, worth fighting for. "Explain," I finally said, my voice low. He ran a hand through his hair. "It's complicated, but I swear, nothing happened. I've only had eyes for you since that first night. I didn't want to scare you off." I stared at him, trying to read the truth in his expression. And slowly, painstakingly, I believed him. We spent the next hour talking, clearing the air, holding hands across the table, sometimes brushing fingers, sometimes just gripping tightly. By the end of the night, I knew one thing. The wrong number text had led me to someone worth taking risks for. And I wasn't about to let him go. The days after that cafe incident were electric. Nate and I didn't just text or talk on the phone. We started sharing small slices of our lives. I found myself wanting him there when I cooked, when I went to the bookstore, when I went for my nightly run along the river. Every mundane moment suddenly felt like it had weight, because he was in it. One Saturday afternoon, he invited me over to his apartment to help with a project. I knew better. There was no project. There was just him, that crooked smile, and the way he looked at me like he was trying to memorize every little detail. We spent hours together, talking, teasing, laughing, the space between us shrinking every time. At one point, we ended up on the couch. I don't remember who moved first, but suddenly we were close enough to feel each other's warmth. My heart was pounding. Every brush of his hand against mine sent sparks shooting through my chest. "Liam," he said softly, voice low, "I don't want to mess this up." "You won't," I whispered back, though my voice trembled. And then it happened. Our lips met, first softly, testing boundaries, then with a growing intensity that caught both of us off guard. It was the kind of kiss that made the world shrink to just the two of us. The hours of texting, the stolen glances, the small laughs, the wrong number beginnings, everything led to this. When we finally pulled back, we rested our foreheads together, laughing breathlessly. "You know," Nate said, a little teasing, "this might be the best wrong number mistake anyone's ever made." I laughed, my chest still hammering. "Definitely." That night, as I walked home, the city lights blurred into streaks of color. I felt light. I felt happy. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just passing through life waiting for something to happen. Something real had started. And all because of a random New Year's text sent to the wrong number. Sometimes the universe just has a funny way of arranging things. By the time mid-January rolled around, Nate and I had fallen into an unexpected but comforting rhythm. Every day seemed to carry the remnants of the previous night's conversations. The laughter, the touches, the quiet moments we stole from the world. I started keeping my phone on me constantly, half expecting him to text me at the most random hour, which almost always he did. It started innocently enough. "Hey, you up?" at 2:17 a.m., or "check your window," when he sent me a picture of some ridiculous moonlight shadow he found in the park. But slowly, the messages became more intentional, more tender, and I couldn't deny how they made my chest tighten, my pulse spike. Even when the message was just him asking if I'd eaten yet. That Friday night, he invited me over to his apartment with a vague, "Want to cook something together? I need help, and also, you." The last part, of course, came with a smirk emoji, and my heart did something stupid like flip and roll over all at once. I agreed, not even thinking twice. When I arrived, he greeted me in that messy-haired, just rolled out of bed way that somehow drove me insane. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, casual to the point of effortless charm, the kind of outfit that made you notice him more than anything fancy ever could. I carried the groceries in while he started chopping onions like a pro, and before I knew it, we were joking, teasing, stealing glances, and bumping into each other in the tiny kitchen. He leaned against the counter behind me, arms around my waist, chin resting lightly on my shoulder. "You really should have told me you were this good at chopping," he whispered, and his breath tickled my ear. My hands froze for a moment on the cutting board. The warmth of his body, his closeness, it felt like electricity running straight through me. "I didn't want to impress you," I said, though my voice betrayed me. I was definitely trying to impress him. Every move I made, every laugh, every small smirk was calculated in the way that felt natural but completely intentional. And he noticed it. He always noticed. We moved around each other in a dance that was somehow intimate without being fully physical, teasing touches on arms, accidental brushes of hands, knees nudging under counters, shoulders pressing lightly as we reached for pots. It was playful and electric, the kind of tension that leaves you dizzy without any warning. By the time the food was cooking, and the apartment smelled of garlic and herbs, we had abandoned the strict helping each other roles and settled onto the couch, plates in hand, wine pouring lazily into glasses. We talked about everything: past crushes, embarrassing work stories, childhood nightmares about monsters under the bed, even our New Year's resolutions. He leaned a little closer with every story I told, a brush of his fingers against mine, a squeeze that lingered just long enough to make me aware of every nerve ending in my arm. At one point, he reached across the coffee table, hand brushing mine accidentally, or maybe not so accidentally. I looked at him, and his eyes met mine, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. There was something unspoken there, something that made the room feel warmer, smaller, private. "Liam," he said softly, almost hesitant, I don't want to mess this up." "You won't," I said, though my voice shook slightly. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him closer, but instead, I let my hands rest lightly on his, our fingers brushing. It was enough to send a shiver up my spine. We lingered there, talking, laughing, sharing more of ourselves than we had in a long time. And then it happened. It wasn't planned, wasn't spoken of, but the moment our eyes met and the air between us thickened, we leaned in, tentatively, carefully, like the world had slowed just for us. The first kiss was light, testing boundaries, gentle, but it sparked something electric. I felt every worry, every hesitation, every insecurity melt away in the warmth of it. His lips on mine were soft but insistent, exploring, learning, familiar in a way that didn't make sense for someone I'd only met weeks ago. When we pulled back, we rested our foreheads together, laughing quietly in disbelief, hearts racing. The city outside continued its normal rhythm, but for us, time had stopped. Everything had shifted. That random New Year's text that had been sent to the wrong number wasn't a mistake anymore. It had become the start of something real, something alive, something I couldn't imagine my life without. And as I walked home later that night, the cold air biting at my cheeks, I realized that sometimes mistakes aren't mistakes at all. Sometimes they're exactly what you need to change everything. After that night at Nate's apartment, things between us escalated faster than I expected. Not in a dramatic or reckless way, but in a way that made every ordinary day feel extraordinary. I caught myself smiling at my phone, counting down the minutes until his next text, planning my evening around when I might see him. It was intoxicating, the thrill of new love that starts from a random mistake. We started spending more time together outside the apartment. Weekend mornings became walks through the city, coffee in hand, sunlight bouncing off buildings. Nate had this way of making even mundane things, walking past a frozen fountain, waiting at a crosswalk, feel charged. Every brush of our hands, every laugh that escaped when we accidentally bumped into each other, it made me feel like the world had shrunk to just the two of us. One Saturday, he suggested we go ice skating. I hadn't been in years, and the thought of falling flat on my face while he laughed made my stomach twist nervously. I arrived to find him already at the rink, lacing up his skates with that careless charm that somehow made him look perfect in the cold winter air. "Ready to embarrass yourself?" he teased, his eyes glinting with mischief. "I'll try not to break my face." I shot back, though my heart was racing in anticipation. We stepped onto the ice, and immediately I realized I was terrible. Within seconds, I was wobbling, arms flailing, trying not to collapse. Nate was gliding effortlessly beside me, steady, confident, occasionally reaching out to steady my balance. Each time our hands brushed, my chest tightened, and I realized that I didn't just want to hold on to the railing, I wanted to hold on to him. "Stop leaning on the barrier. Let go." Nate laughed, his breath visible in the cold air. "I don't trust you," I called back, though my voice was shaky for reasons beyond the ice. He grinned, skated closer, and extended a hand. "Trust me." I took it, and the electricity that shot through my fingers made me nearly lose my balance again. But he didn't let go, not for a second. Instead, he pulled me toward him, steadying me, and for a fleeting moment, the cold, the rink, even my clumsy legs didn't matter. All that mattered was him. By the time we were done skating, the sky had turned a dusky pink, and the rink was nearly empty. We walked to a nearby cafe, hands still brushing, smiles lingering, hearts racing. Over hot chocolate, we shared stories of childhood winters, missed birthdays, and past crushes, laughing at how little we understood ourselves back then, and marveling at how lucky we felt now. That night, as I walked home, my cheeks sore from smiling, I realized just how deep this connection had grown in such a short time. From a wrong number text to late-night calls, shared walks, stolen kisses, and now real, tangible memories, it was more than just serendipity. It was a beginning, the kind that felt like it could last. But with that realization came a nervous thought. Could something so perfect, so fast, survive reality? Would Nate feel the same way after the initial excitement faded? Or would he slip away like so many fleeting connections I'd had before? I didn't have the answer yet. All I knew was that I didn't want to let go. Not now. Not ever. Life with Nate had started to feel normal in the most extraordinary way. I found myself thinking about him constantly, not obsessively, but in that warm, fluttery way that makes every ordinary moment seem brighter. We had our routines now: morning texts, weekend adventures, coffee dates, and lazy evenings watching old movies. It felt effortless, like a secret world only we shared. But as quickly as life had settled, reality had a way of creeping in. It started with a misunderstanding. Nate had invited me to meet him at the bookstore one Thursday evening. I arrived, excitement buzzing, only to see him speaking closely with a woman I didn't recognize. They were laughing, leaning in, and there was an intimacy in their gestures that made my stomach twist. My first instinct was to retreat, to disappear before they saw me. Then he turned, and our eyes met. His smile faltered, confusion and guilt crossing his face. "Liam," he said softly. I didn't respond. My chest was tight, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Was she someone important? Had he lied? Was this just a coincidence, or was it something more? "Wait, let me explain," he continued, stepping closer. She's my cousin. She was just visiting, and we ran into each other. I didn't think you'd be here yet." I froze. The words made sense, but my heart refused to calm. For a moment, I felt the old insecurity creeping in, that nagging thought that maybe all of this, Nate and me, had been too good to be true. He took a cautious step forward, eyes pleading. "Liam, you have to believe me. You're the only one I want to be with. You've been the best part of my life since that night." Slowly, I exhaled, the tension in my shoulders easing. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust him. And as he extended his hand toward me, I reached out, taking it without hesitation. The warmth of his touch, the steadiness of his grip, reminded me of all the reasons I'd fallen for him in the first place. We spent the evening together, walking along the river, talking about everything and nothing. By the time we reached the bridge where we had shared our first kiss, the sky was painted with the soft orange glow of sunset. Nate stopped, turning to me with a nervous smile. "I know we're still early in all of this, but I want you to know I'm all in. No games, no distractions. Just us." I felt my heart swell, the fears and insecurities melting away. "I'm all in too," I whispered, leaning close. Our lips met in a kiss that felt like a promise, not just of this moment, but of all the moments to come. The wrong number text that started it all had led to this, a real messy, beautiful connection. And as we stood on the bridge, hands entwined, hearts beating in sync, I realized something important. Sometimes mistakes aren't mistakes at all. Sometimes they're the universe's way of giving you exactly what you needed. And that New Year's text? It wasn't random. It was fate, sending a wrong number to the right person.